Welcome to Sales is Not a Dirty Word, the show that proves if it's a fit, it's a fact. I'm your host, innovative sales coach Aleasha Bahr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method. If you're a service provider selling your own service and you're ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and convert 8 out of 10 sales conversations without acting like a douchebag, then this is for you. If you want to know more about the Black Sheep Sales Method, go to www.aleashabar.com. And this episode, I'm going to talk about something in a sales conversation that has a lot of emotions around it. And that is objections. So, objections, ideally you want a strategy laid out that's going to proactively overcome them. So, this is something that I do when I take clients through a diagnostic process that's pretty intensive. We uncover what the normal objections are, and then you're just going to ask them ahead of time, right? So, if they're usually complaining about how it seems like it's a lot of time, we're going to ask them right up front, how much time do you have for this? If they're somebody who needs a monetary, like people complain a lot about needing a monetary return immediately, we're going to ask them upfront, when do you need a monetary return? And if you proactively overcome objections, it's going to help a whole lot with you not having to do it at the end of the conversation. Because when they happen at the end of the conversation, you're coming from a defensive place. It's like pushing a boulder uphill. So it's not as easy. And the other person isn't going to be as open minded to your response because they're simply expecting you to overcome them, right? So, anyway, it's still highly possible, even doing that, that objections could happen at the end of the conversation. And the thing that really trips people up when it comes to objections is that they take them personally. It feels like a rejection of some sort. And like all of a sudden, you need to go into a convincing place. And if you go into a convincing place, nobody's buying your shit. Nobody likes to be convinced and nobody likes to be convincing. It's like a desperate kind of energy, right? Unless you're authentically excited and passionate about what you're saying. And then sometimes people will be like, "Wow, you're really selling that." And you're like, "Well, I wasn't trying to. I was just being honest." That's different, right? When you're trying to convince somebody, that feeling is the worst. And there's no reason for you to take objections personally because they're not personal. It's about the person, the buyer, wanting to make the best decision for themselves. And they're simply getting clarity or presenting concerns that make them think that, I don't know, I want to make sure. And there's nothing wrong with that. You, as a buyer, do the same thing. You want to make sure this is the right decision for you, right? So the answer is to approach them with curiosity. And I've been reading this book that is fantastic for women. I highly recommend it, called Unbound by Kasia Urbanek. And she really lays out how women in particular have an issue with any kind of resistance. They are scared to ask for things because the quote unquote good girl, doesn't ask for anything, right? She's resourceful, she's generous, she's really can do all of it without complaint. And to ask for something is needy, right? And we don't want to be needy. So this leads a lot of women to having issues in sales conversations, especially around objections, because not only are women scared to ask for things because it looks needy, but then when they hear resistance, they get scared and they're like, well, I'm never asking again. When really it's just about getting curious in the resistance to find out if it's a lack of clarity or confusion or a way to make it a win-win. Maybe there's something misunderstood or an assumption that's been made. And this is especially true in a sales conversation. So instead of overcoming, quote unquote, an objection the way you normally would, like according to mainstream sales, you're going to ask some questions. You're going to get curious. So sometimes I compare this to dress shopping. Sorry, guys, I don't have a metaphor for y'all, but maybe this one can land for you too if you've been shopping with a woman. So let's say that the woman is going to the store and she has to buy a dress for an event and she's in between two. And there's one that you prefer, but she's still undecided, right? And she's like, well, I don't know. Is it too busty? Are you going to be offended that she might not like the dress that's your favorite? No, right? You're going to ask, you're here to make sure that she feels comfortable in her dress. It's like not about you at all. So you're going to ask questions like, well, is it a formal event? Is there someone there that you want to impress? Are you trying to meet somebody romantically? What's the situation? Are you worried about like if you dance, something's going to pop out? You're going to dig in, right? And find out what about it is making her uncomfortable and the context of the situation so you can help her make the best decision for her. And you wouldn't even dream of taking it personally. And you wouldn't feel weird asking questions either because they're all about she's going to be grateful that you're asking those questions because it's going to help you both get clarity on what the best choice is for her. And it's the same in a sales conversation. So if somebody's like, "Yeah, I just don't know if it's what I need right now." Yeah, do you have something else going on that's a higher priority? Like what feels like it's more important than this? Is there something about the timing that is causing you to feel that way? Is it the investment? Is it what's required to make it successful? You're just going to ask questions. And a lot of times you'll find out together that whatever their concern was doesn't matter or was caused by an incorrect assumption or a misconception or even just the fear that everybody has that is so natural right before investing. That fear that's like, what if I'm an exception? What if I'm wrong? What if I spend this money and I lose it and I get nothing from it? Maybe I should just be safe and not spend it. And maybe it's just that. And talking it through helps give you both enough clarity to say, okay, thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe and making me double check this. And we've double checked and we can feel confident that this is the right decision. So, really, just coming at it from that point of view is going to feel like such a relief to your buyer and a relief to you. Do you want to work with somebody that you had to convince into working with you? No, that's not a good way to start a relationship. You really want it to be a genuinely good fit. And so, it makes such a difference to approach it with this curiosity because if you do what mainstream sales tells you to do, which is overcome it, right? It makes the other person feel dismissed, invalidated. Like, to the metaphor, dress shopping, this feels too busty. No, it's not. Does that help you? Is that helpful? No. What if I feel like that? That's validate my feeling, we're going to be able to come to a decision that someone feels much better about by exploring it with them rather than just telling them it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. So, I hope this makes sense for you guys and feels like something you can implement and really take that this is personal emotion out of it as much as possible and approach it like you are helping someone make the best decision for them because that should be what you're doing and that's what's going to result in the most sales. And you need to be unattached to the decision being you or not. It does not matter what bills you have to pay. It doesn't matter what expenses you have coming up. It doesn't matter to the other person. And it shouldn't matter to you because you don't want to bring someone in who's not a fit, who's not ready, who's not going to get what they need from you and be successful. Because anybody listening to this show has a longer term relationship with their client. And when you start a relationship based on something that is not a good fit, it's extremely draining. It ends up costing you more money. They become nightmare clients, resentful. You feel bad, out of integrity for selling somebody something maybe that they weren't a fit for, or they didn't do the work that they needed to, or they're too demanding, or whatever. Some money is not better than no money. So it's really going to give you both confidence in it. And you're going to feel really good that this person is making the right decision to move forward with you. And that is the foundation for a long-term relationship that you retain. And it is far easier to retain a client and make, upsells with them versus new client acquisition. You want to treat your clients better than you treat your prospects, and you want to treat your prospects like they're going to be your client for a really long time. So you don't want to bully somebody in to a relationship, because that's not going to be a good relationship. And that's essentially what overcoming objections feels like. It feels like bullying. And I anybody listening to this podcast does not want to convince somebody or bully somebody into working with them. It just feels gross. It feels gross on the end as a buyer, and it feels gross as a seller. So, and it also doesn't feel good when you have concerns and the person takes it really personally and starts getting really defensive. You're like, "Okay, seems like a red flag, right? Why are you so defensive?" Like, doesn't make me feel safe moving forward. So, keep that in mind. And this is something that I really work with people on mastering in weekly sessions that I have with my group, where we do reverse role playing. You will be a buyer on someone's offer, and you can feel what it feels like for somebody to talk this through with you. And you'll also get to practice that with other people in the group and ask them, how did that feel? Did it feel pushy? Did it feel like it made you feel safer? Did it feel like you wanted to move forward with me? All the things that you wish that you could ask a prospect in the moment, but obviously can't, because that would be weird. So that's what we do in the group. And it's going to make these kind of reactions muscle memory for you, instead of you having to sit there and pinch yourself and say, "Ugh, remember, be curious," because you've spent a long time feeling defensive when somebody has objections. So it's going to take some repetition to get that out of you. It's a really safe space, judgment free place. So if that's something that you're interested in mastering, so that you have these clear conversations where people want to move forward with you and there's no convincing or grossness around it, then book a sales level up call, and I would love to support you with that. And in the meantime, thank you for listening. That brings us to the end of another episode of Sales is Not a Dirty Word, and I will see you on the next one.